you need to remember that closing leads from outbound is a bit different than from inbound, because from inbound traffic, someone came to you, like on your webpage, subscribed, did something very proactively. With outbound, you are going after someone. So it's kind of different dynamics. It's more like, I would say inbound calls are very often like demos. People want to know about the software. Outbound calls are more like discovery calls / consulting, when you actually need to hear and understand what they want to achieve based on what they've seen in your email. So it requires a bit more of flexibility. So having that said, I do it because I want to understand, with what kind of questions or what level of understanding my team is usually dealing with, or how it works to actually close the lead that comes from outbound. And if you are right now, for example, struggling to get leads out of outbound, but you see replies,
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Growth and Conversions podcast. I was talking to many of founders around Poland, especially in Wrocław, about cold email. In specific niche market, low ticket product, cold email works, of course, and that's why I'm wearing this T-shirt. I got it from Woodpacker. Yeah, cold email. Yes, it's not dead. It works. But at the same time, when I talk to founders, the software house founders, the companies that they are selling a high ticket product, more than 20K plus ACV, they think the cold email does not work. That's why I decided to invite Margaret. Gosha is okay if I say Gosha?
yeah,
Gosha is okay, right? Gosha, a CEO of Woodpacker, needs no introduction, I guess. You will find her in every European events, and Woodpacker needs no introduction. Most sales teams and agencies in Europe are using Woodpacker. Now it's becoming multi-channel platform, right? So that's update. What exactly campaign that she thinks that gives more than 5 to 7% reply rates? And she promised me today that she's going to give exact step-by-step methods. So you hear this podcast and launch the campaign, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, welcome, Gosha. Welcome on the show. I'm happy to have you.
Sure, that's awesome to be here. I'm very excited for the talk.
So you said that you are in the cold email industry and you're running this business over 10 years. What is the difference that you've seen what was working 2016 and now 2026?
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, deliverability and tech layer has changed a lot. So when I started back in like 10 years ago, the complexity of tech behind cold email was in like a different place. We were all sending 200 emails from one domain and it was perfectly fine. And right now it does not exist anymore. So like the deliverability is absolutely in a different place. Back in the days, we were scaling vertically. So we were just adding more sending volume, more contacts to the pipeline, and it was working. Right now, you have to scale horizontally. And this is something what I see still people skip a lot. Because we are not like entirely switched to the new reality. And by sending horizontally, I mean that we have multiple domains, and on each of the domains we have like 3 mailboxes. This is the healthy ratio. I would say having more is a bit risky. And from each of those mailboxes, you have the capacity to send between like 20 to 30 emails a day. So if you want to gain bigger volume, you simply need to add domains and mailboxes. And this is not something that is an option anymore. If you want to send in volume, you need to duplicate the infrastructure, because otherwise you will either land in spam or you will just go nowhere. Your message will either bounce or just be lost in a void. And ultimately, when you send cold outreach, the reason why you're doing it is to deliver the message, not to send it, because sending is easy. Inboxing is the tricky part. So asking back to your question, what has changed is that we send in a different way. We send from multiple mailboxes, multiple domains. And if you feel that cold emailing used to work for you, but it's not anymore, the starting point to understand what has changed would be to see how you send, how many domains and mailboxes you do have, because I would bet in some cases the issue will be just there.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about deliberity at the end, but I'm more
Sure.
excited to know during the last time when we met, I guess, Krakow, yes, we
Yeah.
met. You mentioned that you are getting response rate more than 8%, 10%. So can you walk me through specific campaign? What was the campaign look like that get this reply rate? Because I don't see, like, yes, we hear many times, and I don't see this kind of reply rate we are getting. So can you walk me through exact campaign that's getting this kind of response?
Sure. So on the tech layer, definitely multiple mailboxes, multiple domains, diversification of ESPs. We can come back to that a bit later, but overall healthy technology that stands behind that. Then in terms of like how to get to the point where I know what converts and what gives me replies, this is the matter of testing. And this is something what I see people skip a lot because it requires a bit of work. So when you start sending, you usually don't know what would be the best converting strategy. You need to figure it out. You need to find the offer market fit. And now how to do it? You do it usually, if you want to do it fast, with doing tests that are bold, that are, courageous, that actually can show the differences. Because what I see a lot is like when I talk about A/B testing with people and finding what fits, they usually test very safe stuff. CTA, subject line, date of sending, hours of sending, this type of very safe things. So when you change something, you won't break the system. But it also means that when you improve it, it won't give you like 10x result. Statistically, when we analyze it, when you change the subject line, CTA, and this kind of like soft changes, you could boost your effectiveness by like 5 to 10% of the current result. So it's worth trying, but it will not give you 10x of what you currently have. Then the next layer of testing is usually more around like, strategy, list of sources from which you take data, and copy quality. And it's important. But again, like we analyzed millions of sent emails, and this type of testing will give you like 30 to maybe 100% of growth, which is something. But there is one thing that moves the needle even further. Is the segmentation, is the niche selection, is testing value propositions, is testing perspectives, is doing the tests that can actually move the conversion. Because if you have your value proposition, let's say your value proposition is that you can help to automate process A. You can present this value proposition from multiple angles and multiple perspectives. You can present it through ROI, you can present it through empathy, through emotions, through FOMO, through competition, through anything else. And if you stick just to one strategy, you're not actually trying to discover the global maximum, which is the ultimate goal if you want to have campaign that gets like 10% of reply rate. And it won't be easy, but you can get there because statistically, especially if you outbound in Europe in languages that are other than English, just by that, you get better chances because inboxing and getting responses in languages other than English is usually easier, statistically speaking, because it's less saturated than when you use English and you, for example, outreach to the US. So having that said, testing is the way where you reach the point that your campaign converts the way you would like it to convert.
Can you give specific example, like with specific name of the industry and two, three value proposition? Can you give some examples? I'm sure.
Sure. So, for example, one of the best performing campaigns I've seen among our customers was about brand partnerships, spent paid and unpaid. And they had like, that was insane. They were over 90% response rate with like super segmentation. But then, for example, for software houses outreaching to actually English speaking market, they were able still per one campaign able to generate like 100 of email of leads or more from a database of around 5K contacts. They were able to generate, a couple hundred sales opportunities. So it's a good ratio. It's just the matter of finding what fits to your audience and how you actually help them to solve the problem that they have on the table. But overall, like when you look on the global response rate and global mediana, that will be somewhere between 1.5 to 3%. But again, this is global. So then you're counting also, people who are spamming and people who are mass senders sending millions of emails a month, which are usually not the representation of what is the typical, quality driven sender.
And how does the segmentation looks like? So when you say you need a better segmentation, so how do you do this segmentation at your for yourself? And if you're talking about the high ACV product, like for software houses, what kind of segmentation you've seen that work well?
So that depends on what you do. So what is your product or service? But if you struggle with segmentation, usually the easiest way is to analyze who bought from you in last year or in last 6 months and do your segmentation based on that. Because ICP can get outdated. If you use ICP that you used 5 years ago, it may be the case that actually you have a different buyer right now than you had in the past, but you're just sticking with like old perception of what is there. So if you struggle with segmentation, try to do the exercise to check who bought from you on the ticket that you like from perspective of money in last 6 months and create your persona around that. So, check their buying process from there, where they came to you. Was it acquisition through email, through LinkedIn, through paid ads? Put some research on the top of like from where you took these customers from. Then try to, see what features they have in common: company size, geography, market segment, and so on and so forth. And when you go deeper and deeper and deeper in that research, you will actually see, what types of ICP or micro segments you have out there. And when you have that, you have multiple tools on the market, including web page scrapers, databases scrapers, LinkedIn search, prospecting databases, and so on and so forth, that can help you to get more of that type of customers. And if that's something that is a bit tricky for you, you can always go like the easiest way in terms of finding similar customers to what you have and just do lookalike search. So lookalike, when you give the domain of your client, it can try to create filters around that and give you similar ones to the ones that bought from you in last XYZ months.
Sure. So, can you give specific tools that can be used researching the contact database? Can you
Sure.
give
So absolutely. So it depends on which source you want to use, but of course we have one at Woodpecker, so you can do lookalike search in our software. But if you want to have like specific ones, I do a lot of my research through Clay, of course, which is pretty typical, I would say, for the market. But for lookalikes, you can do Ocean.io or Discolike, both great products. So you can test it out if that works for your market segment. So basically I would say that as a starter. And then for databases, there's a lot of databases. I would say this is the most saturated segment of our market for B2B sales. So just test a bunch of and see how it works, Prospera, Datagma, Drop Contact, anything else that is out there, see if the data are good enough. If not, try to find a competitor and see, if that helps. If you don't want to plug it in manually, also at Woodpecker, you get free credits for the database testing. And we use like typical waterfall of providers. So you can just test out there for free and check if that makes sense for the business.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for mentioning that, and I will certainly check around this. Now, can you give the campaign? If today we want to launch a campaign, and specifically we are talking about the high ACV products, software houses, and ERP solution providers. Can you give this multi-channel, because I know you mentioned that multi-channel works better. So what are the campaign and how exact campaign that will work for the high speed?
So for the high value ticket, the first 2 or 3 things that we need to figure out up front. First of all, if you're reaching out to like a high quality or like golden cohort, meaning that each sale is very precious for you and brings up a lot of money to the organization, you should invest in preparation of your tech. Longer warm up, good quality of domains, etc. Because if you convert even one lead from that segment, it will mean something for your business and for your income. So prep of your infrastructure is a must. Then the next thing is that usually 2 to 3 follow-ups in a campaign is a must. If you see that your golden cohort is not reacting to what you're sending, stop sending, figure other approach, different value proposition, different angle, different something, but something substantial, and come back in a month. Don't ping them every 2 weeks or every week with the same type of approach, because if they're not responsive, they will not magically start responding to the value proposition they don't like. So, test not push. So that this type of logic. And the third of all, if you track opens and you see that your audience is not opening your messages, switch channel, because it means that maybe they ignore messages. Maybe they have some type of whitelisting on their servers and they like get your messages filtered out. Many other reasons. But if they don't reply to your emails or they don't open it, they don't see it, just switch to LinkedIn because maybe they're responsive there. So, plan it as a strategy. And especially if you're reaching out to like enterprise type of companies or, I would say more up market, make sure that your message is very clear and very easy to understand what you're offering, because usually you're reaching out to very busy people. They don't have time to figure out what you want from them. So no bullet point lists, no very long sentences. You have like 8 seconds of their attention. They'll scan the message. And if they don't understand what you're offering, you're out. They won't continue figuring, because they're too busy on the daytime to actually have some free time to analyze it. So I would say those are like 3 things that you need to set up front. So prep the tech, make sure your message is clear enough and you're not pushing too hard. If they don't want to respond to that, they won't. You can't force them. So just come back with something else instead of sending 12 follow-ups. And if they don't react to the channel, switch the channel.
Absolutely. So when you mention prep the tech, what exactly do you mean? Because nowadays all the tech, even Woodpecker is coming up with a better delivery. So what exactly that when you say the prep the tech, what are the steps that we need to take manually, and what comes inside the tool itself? So if you're talking about Woodpecker, what's inside the tool, what we don't have to look after, and what we should do manually?
So first of all, when you want to send cold outreach campaigns, you need to have for email domains and mailboxes prepared for the sending. And for LinkedIn, you need to have LinkedIn accounts. As simple as that. For email, what you have to do is you have to buy domains upfront, age them. So you don't buy domain today, you don't start to send from it tomorrow because it will burn very fast. And when it get some rest and some time to age. After that process, you put warm-ups on the mailboxes. So warm-up is a process that sends and receives email before you start your actual sending to give you positive reputation. And you can automate all of that. I mean, you don't have to buy domains manually as we used to do in the past. You don't have to buy mailboxes manually. There are providers on the market that are dedicated for cold outreach infrastructure. Some of them we have integrated at Woodpecker, like, Maildoso, InfraForge, Zapmail, Hypertide, some others as well. So you can get it from us if you use our product. If you don't want to just get it somewhere else on the market, but do it. So don't just rely on your main domain as a sending unit. Get dedicated infrastructure because this is the way it should be done. Then apply warm-up. Again, you can do it at Woodpecker, you can do it with other providers, but just do it because this is the hygiene. You have to do it as a mandatory step. And thing that you should plan as a strategy is that you don't rely on one email address providers. So you don't do just Google or just Microsoft or just custom SMTPs. Because overall, if you put like your mailboxes on different providers, you diversify risks. So if your copy or if your domain name gets blacklisted at one provider, you still have others from which you are sending. If you put all your resources in one place and it goes bad, you are kind of in a situation that we need to start from scratch. And one more thing in terms of preparing tech, so the infrastructure, seriously consider doing backups. I know not a lot of people is doing backups, but it's, in my opinion, a mistake. Buy some extra infrastructure and mailboxes and just keep it in warm up because your domains and your mailboxes will burn eventually. And if you don't have a backup, you're just left with nothing. If you have a backup, you take what's burned, you plug in the backup, and you have the consistency of getting leads.
When do you actually think that the deliverability is issue? And because last time when we met, I remember there was an issue in deliverability. I was sending emails in my campaign, and you mentioned that not all the domain providers will let you know that there is an issue about deliverability. So when do you actually get to know that there is an issue in deliverability and I need to do something?
Sure. So there's a bunch of things to consider. First of all, You always look at the response rate. If you know that the global statistics is that you can be between 1.5 to 3% and you see zero reply rate, there is like 100% chances that you can improve something because you are below the global standard and the global standard is pretty low. So reply rate is what we are aiming for. Reply rate is what we all want. Of course, positive in the best case scenario, but we all want to see the replies. So if you see zero replies, don't think there is something to fix. Now, in many cases, you will see bounces. For example, peak spikes and bounces that you don't get bounces, then you see this amount growing, or you will see small number of bounces. But if you go to your inbox and read the bounce, you will see that there was a spam report. There was something like severe, because in bounces you do have the information written. It's not in very user-friendly form, but you can take it from there, saying, for example, that you were marked as a spam sender, which is pretty heavy, or that you were reported somewhere, and so on and so forth. Because you not always get a lot of bounces. Sometimes it's enough to get one or two spam reports from your prospects, and you may be just blocked and you don't necessarily see all other bounces. It was just bad enough to be in a situation that your messages will basically go into the void. So yeah, I would say reply rate. If you don't see reply rate, this is what we are optimizing for. When you see bounce rates above 3%, let's say, or above 5%, let's be a bit liberal on this one. Stop sending, fix it, and then continue. And depending, if you track open rates, you can also see some drops in open rates. Not everyone tracks it. So that's just, the matter of choice. But overall, our goal is to get responses. If you don't see it, you should start fixing your system, because like the global standard is at least 1.5%. So you should be able to get there.
And when you say fixing, I actually need to change the domains.
If it's burned, so if that's the problem, because it may be also the problem with the mailboxes or with the volume of sending, but overall, yeah, if the domain is burned, it's most likely the best way is to stop sending from this one, take the one from backup and put this one to rest for, let's say, a month, and then do warm up on this burned one again to rebuild the reputation. You can also do inbox placement tests. There's a bunch of providers on the market that allows you to do the inbox placement testing. So you can do this one. It's not 100%, it's not bulletproof, because the bulletproof is only the feedback you get from your sending. But you can also try to see how this one performs for you.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on this inbox testing? What exactly, and who are the providers? What exactly we are doing?
So, yeah, inbox placement test is basically that you send email to someone's infrastructure and they try to predict how it will be received. So if it will go to spam or to main inbox or to notifications, or maybe it will be bounced. So it's kind of like you send to someone's infrastructure and they try to predict where exactly your message will go from this setup. So yeah, this is one way of doing it. You can do it, but it's not like bulletproof. It never will be, because it's not organic sending, it's just a test. For example, some of our customers are using Folderly for inbox placement test. I haven't used them for a while, but I know that overall feedback was pretty positive. So yeah, you can try to search basically anything that is for inbox placement test and see where your messages are going, with the disclaimer, it can change in time, and this is just a test. So it's not like something that you can rely forever.
I'm sorry.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
So when you say it's a lot about cold email. So now can we talk more? When you said that sometime back you mentioned that you also take sales calls, which is rare. Not every founder does that. So can you tell me what are the changes that you see? What do you experience, and why do you do that?
Sure. So I try to be as active as I can in sales process, because we do software for outbound. So I want to understand what our customers are facing, or what they need to deliver to actually close the deal. Because also if any of people listening to us do have inbound team and they consider to add outbound to their stack, you need to remember that closing leads from outbound is a bit different than from inbound, because from inbound traffic, someone came to you like on your web page, subscribed, did something very proactively. With outbound, you are going after someone. So it's kind of different dynamics. It's more like, I would say inbound calls are very often like demos. People want to know about the software. Outbound calls are more like discovery calls / consulting, when you actually need to hear and understand what they want to achieve based on what they've seen in your email. So it requires a bit more of flexibility. So having that said, I do it because I want to understand, with what kind of questions or what level of understanding my team is usually dealing with, or how it works to actually close the lead that comes from outbound. And if you are right now, for example, struggling to get leads out of outbound, but you see replies, it's worth checking with your team if they have enough knowledge, enough resources to close outbound deals, because they are different. It's different approach. Usually this customer needs more time because they didn't come with a, buying decision. Yes, I'm subscribing for this trial because I want to buy. Usually they need a bit different process and different touch points in the meantime. So yeah, it's something also that I wanted to share, that if you struggle to close outbound leads, maybe there is something that you can do internally to help your team to actually deliver the deals.
And do you use that in also outbound value propositions and cold email, this information?
Not that much, not this in particular. But yeah, maybe it's worth testing. It's always good to test if something sticks.
Yeah, because I do use something that is I'm talking to whoever I'm talking to, and if I think that okay, even some part of when we are talking in during the podcast, I use okay, this is what I spoke and this is what I found out,
Mm-hmm.
and I change the value proposition. Sometimes it's helpful, so it depends on the way
Sure.
I'm outreaching.
Sure. We don't do cold calling currently. So our main acquisition channels are paid ads, of course, like content. So anything around the webpage plus LinkedIn plus other platforms like YouTube and so on and so forth. But outbound is one of the channels that we do utilize among others. It's mostly outbound via email
Mhm.
and some manual outreach on LinkedIn through my account.
So you do the combination of a lead sourcing, the combination of the channels. Do you use
Yeah.
for the same company, same target list, or for the different target lists?
So for some target lists, if the deal size is smaller, I would say one channel like email, because email is cheaper than LinkedIn, is good enough if you want to do outbound. And for some, especially if they're not responsive, at email, it's worth to plug another channel. So yeah, but overall for us is a mix. And what I see, what results the best for our customers is that usually they start with email, because you can go very broad. You can have like thousands of domains if you want to, and you can't have that easy thousands of LinkedIn accounts. So what I usually see they are doing when they are very effective is that they start with email because it's very broad, and then they plug in LinkedIn where email is not effective enough.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you so much for answering step by step
Sure.
methods, and great to have you on podcast. Thank you so much for joining me, Gosha.
Absolutely. That was my pleasure.